Hey everyone, welcome to Hidden Explained. Imagine this. You and your children live in a quiet house surrounded by endless farmland. You're living with a disability and things are already challenging enough. Then one day, you see a strange woman in a black gown sitting silently just outside your home. When you try to speak to her, she responds in a chilling, almost inhuman way that sends shivers down your spine. To make things worse, you have no electricity, your phone is dead, and there's no way to call for help. Soon, the woman begins appearing closer and closer to the house. At first, she just watches, but as the sun begins to set, she transforms into something much more terrifying. A dark, shadowy figure that stalks you and your children, feeding off your fear. Now ask yourself, what would you do at this moment? How would you protect yourself and your kids from something you can't even begin to understand? So friends, today I'll be explaining horror film of 2025 titled Woman in the Yard. The movie is quite interesting and very different. You'll definitely enjoy watching it. Now, without any delay, let's get straight into the video. So at the beginning of the movie, we meet a family who live in a farmhouse in the countryside. The family consists of a mother and two kids, where the mother's name is Ramona, the elder son's name is Taylor, and the younger daughter's name is Annie. These three live here all alone. In the first few scenes, we understand that Ramona and her late husband David renovated this place with a lot of painstaking effort and love. Cue montage of happy family hammering nails and painting walls to soft acoustic guitar music. Some time ago, a tragic car accident claimed David's life. He couldn't make it out alive. The impact was severe, and sadly he didn't survive the crash. As for Ramona, she was badly hurt in the same accident. Her injuries were so extensive that even now, she relies on a walker just to move around. From what we've gathered, it was David who was behind the wheel when the accident occurred. It seems the crash happened due to the slippery, rain-soaked road. The wet conditions made it difficult to control the vehicle, leading to the unfortunate and heartbreaking incident. Note to self, horror movies should ban rainy driving scenes. Nothing good ever comes of them. So now, since Ramona was very hurt physically and mentally, we see her struggling to manage the house. As soon as the lights come in, she says, "Give me strength." Preach, Ramona, you and the audience both. In fact, Taylor used to do all the household work. This kid deserves a medal, a therapist, and probably a horror survival badge. Like playing with dog Charlie, feeding him, feeding the chickens in the farm, making breakfast for the family, and much more. Ramona was struggling so much that there were neither enough groceries nor dog food in the house, and due to power outage, her troubles increased further. Let me guess, right before a thunderstorm and a ghost sighting? Classic timing. Ramona's phone didn't even have enough charge to call anyone, and she was repeatedly getting angry at Taylor without any reason, which was irritating Taylor as well. Please tell me we don't have a possessed mom subplot brewing. Overall, we can clearly understand that Ramona was not able to manage her family at all because of her physical and mental condition, and got it. Emotional breakdown arc unlocked. Well, after breakfast, Ramona sees a lady outside her house, fully covered in a black dress, sitting on a farm bench. Oh sure, perfectly normal. Random Victorian widow cosplay in your yard. No red flags. In such a situation, Ramona asks Taylor and Annie to stay inside, and she herself goes to talk to this lady in black dress. Brilliant move. Let's approach the obvious ghost with zero backup. Now upon inquiry, this lady in black dress says strange things like, "How did I get here? What is your name? Your house needs fixing," etc. So basically she's either possessed, confused, or a very aggressive interior designer. But things get creepy when this lady sees Ramona's broken leg and damaged car and guesses that her husband died in a car accident. Either she's psychic or Google Street View has gone way too far. Not only this, she asks Ramona to disappear. Then Ramona's babies are cooked enough to eat and finally repeats that today is the day, Ramona. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Babies are cooked enough to eat. Please tell me that's metaphorical. If not, we just went from a ghost story to a psychological cannibalism thriller. You called me, and I came. Hearing this, Ramona freezes in fear. Standing before her is Vasu, her hands smeared with blood, a clear sign she's slaughtered one of their chickens. This visually confirms that Vasu is becoming more unhinged. In a panic, Ramona dashes out to the car, her mind racing, clutching her phone with trembling hands. She's hoping that she can start the car just enough to charge her dead phone and call the police. But when she turns the key in the ignition, the engine coughs once, then dies. Nothing. nothing. The battery's just as dead as her phone. Frustrated and with no other options left, she slams the door shut, rushes to the garage, and grabs the nearest working flashlight. It flickers slightly, but it'll have to do. Taking a deep breath, she steels herself and heads back inside the house, the silence pressing in around her. Back inside, the kids are wide-eyed, shaken, and confused. They huddle together, voices hushed and wary. One of them finally speaks up, asking about the strange woman in the black dress they saw. Who was she? What did she want? But Ramona doesn't answer. She stands there, flashlight in hand, face pale and unreadable. She says nothing. She's hiding the truth, either to protect them or because she's afraid. Taylor, growing suspicious, starts asking pointed questions. Ramona, already on edge, begins acting increasingly erratic, throwing a cup in frustration, yelling without reason, and locking the entire house down. Her mental state is clearly deteriorating. In the midst of all this, a single flower petal is seen lodged in the wound on her leg, a seemingly minor detail. This will hold symbolic or narrative significance later. Annie sits down to study, and once again, we see her write the word add incorrectly, a subtle but recurring behavioral cue. Meanwhile, the woman in black is still sitting silently in the yard, unmoving. Ramona steps out again and notices something terrifying. Their dog Charlie has vanished. The vanishing pet is a common horror trope indicating an unseen threat nearby. She says nothing, but inside her a storm is roaring to life. Fear, confusion, and exhaustion swirl into something darker, something volatile. The silence stretches, thick with unspoken tension, until it finally snaps. Ramona and Taylor clash, words fly like daggers, sharp and reckless. Taylor demands answers, his voice rising with frustration, while Ramona, fraying at every edge, fires back with all the fury of someone who's barely holding it together. It's not just the woman in the black dress anymore, it's the house, the isolation, the haunting weight of everything they've been through. Caught in the middle of the chaos, little Annie sits quietly, diligently drawing with a crayon, unaware of the storm around her until Ramona turns on her. Overwhelmed and at a breaking point, Ramona lashes out, her voice sharp and unforgiving, snapping at Annie for writing the letter R backwards for the third time in a row. The words come fast and mean, and the moment they leave her mouth, she knows she's gone too far. Instant regret hits her like a punch to the chest. Her expression softens, her shoulders sag. She drops to her knees and pulls Annie into a tight, remorseful hug, whispering apologies through tears. But then, just over Annie's shoulder, her eyes catch the mirror across the room, and what she sees makes her blood run cold. In the reflection, it's not a mother comforting her child, it's something else entirely. She sees herself with her own twisted image, gripping a knife, cold and lifeless, plunging it into Annie's back. No blood in the real world, no wound, but in the mirror, the vision is clear, vivid, horrifying. She gasps, recoiling in horror, unsure of what's real anymore, and utterly terrified of what she might be becoming. This illusion hints at Ramona's inner fears, or perhaps a dark influence. Thankfully, it was just an illusion. In reality, the knife had pierced the pillow she was hugging, but Taylor saw it all, and in that moment, he knew something was deeply wrong with his mother. This moment marks a turning point in Taylor's arc, from child to reluctant protector. Later, as Ramona tends to a minor injury on Annie's arm, Taylor quietly slips out of the house. Determined and scared, he makes his way to the car and sets off toward the neighboring farm. This sets up the next Taylor stepping into action. But as we all know, the car wasn't starting, and after a while, Ramona catches Taylor outside the house. This leads to yet another heated argument between mother and son. Meanwhile, the woman in the yard remains seated in the same haunting spot, a consistent presence unnerving in its stillness. Taylor has now connected the dots. His dog, Charlie, is missing, and his mother is clearly hiding something. The cracks in Ramona's carefully built wall of denial are beginning to show. Pushed past his limit, Taylor bolts into the house and rushes to retrieve his father's gun. Ramona tries to stop him, pleading, panicking, but the chaos outside is already hitting much closer to home. The tension has now escalated beyond words. Taylor gets the gun and walks outside, trembling but determined. He confronts the woman and demands that she leave their property, but instead of retreating, the woman removes her black veil and reveals her calm, eerie, and knowing. She begins to speak. She tells Taylor that his mother, Ramona, has lied to him. Lied about what? This is the moment everything changes. As the woman speaks, her shadow begins to grow unnaturally large, creeping along the ground and up the walls. This subtly actually reveals her ability to manipulate shadows. Here's an expanded and emotionally layered version of that next scene, continuing the intense dramatic tone. The front door slams open with a thunderous bang. Taylor storms back inside, eyes blazing with fury and desperation. His fists are clenched, his jaw tight. He's had enough of half-truths and hollow reassurances. "Tell me the truth, Mom," he demands, voice shaking. "I want to know what really happened to Dad. No more lies." Ramona freezes. For a moment, the only sound is the wind howling outside, rattling the windows like a warning. She's cornered now. No more evading, no more pretending. Her breath catches, and for a moment, she looks like she might deny it again, but she doesn't. Something in her breaks open. Her face crumples, and her voice is barely above a whisper. "Fine," she says. "You want the truth? Here it is." She sinks into the nearest chair, hands trembling in her lap, eyes fixed on the floor as if afraid to look at her son. "That night, the night of the accident, your father and I had gone out for dinner. It was supposed to be something special. We got dressed up, went to that fancy place in town, but I wasn't really there. Not emotionally." Taylor watches her, fuming but silent. "I was distant, cold. I couldn't help it," she continues, "because I was miserable. The truth is, I hated life on the farm, the routine, the silence, the endless chores. It all felt like a cage. I loved your father, but I hated the life we had built. I didn't want to live like that anymore, and I didn't know how to say it." Tears slip down her cheeks now, and her voice begins to crack. "I picked a fight that night, something small. I don't even remember what it was about, but it escalated, and we argued the whole drive home. I told him things I didn't mean, things I wish I could take back. He was distracted, angry. The roads were slick from the rain." She finally looks up at Taylor, her face hollow with guilt. "And then we crashed. Just like that. He was gone. And her voice catches, 'I survived.'" The silence that follows is suffocating. Taylor's expression twists shock, pain, betrayal, all colliding at once. "You think that's the truth I wanted?" he says quietly, eyes wet with rage. "You've been hiding this from us for years." Ramona doesn't reply. She just sits there, drowning in the weight of her confession, while the house around them seems to grow colder, darker, as if listening. A brutal irony. She had once begged for this life. Back when they lived in the city, Ramona constantly complained about her exhausting job. She'd cry, vent, and wish for escape. So David, trying to make her happy, uprooted everything and moved the family to the countryside. But even now, with the quiet life she once longed for, Ramona was unhappy. She wanted to leave again, but David wouldn't have it. He and the kids were finally content, and he didn't want to abandon it all. Frustrated and feeling suffocated, Ramona lashed out emotionally. That night, after dinner, she was the one driving the car, not David. Lost in her spiraling thoughts, Ramona glimpsed something, perhaps the same woman from the yard, in the rearview mirror. Distracted, she veered off the road. The crash was catastrophic. David didn't survive. Ramona did, but with deep wounds, both physical and psychological. And afterward, she lied. She told her children that David had been driving to shield herself from blame. This moment reframes everything: Ramona's guilt, paranoia, and the haunting presence. Taylor is shattered by the truth. The image of his mother is no longer whole, now fractured by betrayal. As the emotional storm rages inside, a literal one begins outside. The woman in the black dress unleashes her power, shaking the house to its foundations. Shadows stretch unnaturally across walls and ceilings, tossing objects through the air like unseen hands. A supernatural manifestation of suppressed truth and guilt. The woman's shadow begins appearing in every corner of the house. Ramona, Taylor, and Annie retreat to the attic in terror, but even there, they aren't safe. The woman uses the shadows cast by moonlight through the attic window to reach for Annie, trying to pull her into the dark. Just in time, Taylor slams the window shut, blocking the light, and with it, the shadow. It's a brief victory, but the haunting is far from over. Now at this point, the woman in the yard begins to escalate the fear, flickering flashlights, creating disorienting noises, and manipulating their surroundings. In the end, she overpowers Ramona. The supernatural force has finally taken hold. It appears as though the woman fuses or merges with Ramona symbolically or literally, and then turns her attention to little Annie. At one eerie moment, the woman and her ghostly shadow embrace Annie, and in the blink of an eye, Annie vanishes. A chilling moment of possession or abduction. Yes, Taylor is now completely alone, but soon Ramona reappears, disoriented but determined. The two of them begin searching frantically for Annie, calling out her name through the creaking halls of the house. Their search leads Ramona to a hidden door, strange and almost organic in appearance, which opens into a room that plays out a vivid memory from the past. A portal to trauma, not just a flashback. The world around her softens into something golden, dreamlike. In this surreal memory, or perhaps a hallucination, Ramona stands in the garden, the late afternoon sun bathing everything in a warm, honeyed light. The air is fragrant with blooming irises, lilacs, and the soft rustle of leaves in a gentle breeze. Her favorite flowers sway all around her, painting the earth in delicate pastels. David is there, alive, vibrant, and smiling like he used to. He stands proudly in front of the newly finished farmhouse, his eyes shining with excitement and love. "What do you think?" he asks, his voice filled with hope. "We built it together, Ramona." She looks around, the wood still fresh, the windows clear and uncracked. Everything is new, untouched by time, untouched by tragedy. A part of her melts, if only for a moment. The resentment, the bitterness, it fades in the warm glow of the memory. She smiles faintly, reaching out to touch a nearby flower. "We should name it," David says, taking her hand gently. "Something that means something to us." Ramona laughs softly. It's the kind of laugh she hasn't felt in years, genuine, effortless. She starts to reply, but the words never come, because David is gone. Just like that, the hand she was holding disappears. The warmth evaporates, and the sky begins to dim unnaturally. The colors drain from the flowers, turning them brittle and gray. The house, once solid and proud, begins to groan and creak, warping like it's breathing. Then he reappears, but it's not him. Not really. It looks like David, but his eyes are hollow now. His face is slack, cold, twisted with something vile. Whatever this thing is, it wears his skin, but not his soul. Without warning, it lunges at her. Ramona screams, stumbling backward as he attacks with terrifying strength and rage, pinning her to the wooden porch. His hands are no longer warm. They're ice cold, bruising. She fights, kicks, shouts his name, trying to pull the real David back from whatever darkness this is, but there's no recognition in his face, just wrath, just pain, and in the distance, barely audible beneath her screams, the house seems to laugh. A low, creaking sound that echoes through the rafters like a cruel reminder. This place remembers everything, the loving memory twisted into horror. Ramona blacks out. She awakens in the yard, now dressed in the same black gown as the woman, and standing face to face with herself. Yes, friends, it's the very same scene from earlier when Ramona first encountered the woman in the yard, but this time the twist is clear. Ramona is the woman in the yard. She has become part of the very entity that tormented her, a psychological and supernatural merging a manifestation of guilt, grief, and self-loathing. She starts pulling at the black veil as though trying to tear herself free. Normal Ramona, her real self, stands nearby and shouts, "Today is the day!" This is her moment of reckoning. The scene cuts sharply. Ramona suddenly finds herself back in the attic, and this time, both Taylor and Annie are there. A reset, but not without purpose. As they go downstairs together, the woman in the yard appears one last time, blocking their path. Ramona raises a gun and threatens her, finally confronting her greatest fear. And then comes the most important revelation. The woman calmly says, "You called me." She explains that every morning Ramona would whisper to herself, "Give me strength." But the question is, strength for what? Here's where the psychological undertones become unavoidable. As it turns out, Ramona was never asking for the strength to heal, but for the strength to escape from her responsibilities, from motherhood, from her own life. A brutal truth hidden under the veil of grief. The woman in the yard isn't a demon, but a force Ramona conjured a shadow of her own despair and desire to break free. She came not to harm, but to help Ramona do what she believed she couldn't. And we'll let you infer what that is because, well, you know how YouTube works. In this moment of realization, Ramona looks at her children, Taylor, who's been doing everything for the family, and Annie, who's just a child caught in the chaos. And for the first time, Ramona takes responsibility. She turns to them and says, "Go, leave this place." Ramona has made her choice, and it's not an escape. It's redemption. Taylor and Annie, feeling the weight of the eerie presence closing in, make a desperate decision to flee to the neighboring farm, a place that promises safety even if temporary, leaving Ramona behind, alone and vulnerable, with the woman in the yard. This moment feels heavy with symbolism, the children physically stepping away from danger, seeking refuge, while Ramona remains to face the terrifying storm raging inside her own mind. It's a heartbreaking division between innocence and burden, safety and chaos. As expected, the woman in the yard yard sees this opportunity to strike once more. She whispers venomous lies, poisonous doubts, and dark thoughts that gnaw at Ramona's fragile psyche. The oppressive presence urges her to give in to despair, to surrender to the crushing weight of her own darkness. For a fleeting, terrifying moment, Ramona even raises the gun towards herself, teetering on the edge of giving up completely. It's a stark, raw portrayal of a soul pushed to the brink of collapse, caught in the throes of surrender. But then, the scene cuts sharply to a new moment. Ramona emerges from the house alive, composed, transformed. The storm inside her seems to have shifted. The tension has loosened, if only slightly. Moments later, Taylor and Annie rush back to her side, relief flooding their faces as they reunite. The family, though battered, is together again. Ramona looks at them and speaks with quiet strength. I've sent her away. She may come back, but next time, we'll be ready. This isn't a promise of final victory or an end to the battle, rather. It's a statement of resilience and defiance. The darkness may return, but so will their courage, their preparedness, their unbreakable bond. Together, the family steps back inside their home, and just as they do, something shifts. The lights flicker back on. It's as if the heavy, suffocating darkness that had wrapped around their lives is finally beginning to recede. The atmosphere lightens. Hope flickers anew. Even Charlie, their beloved dog who had mysteriously vanished, returns a living symbol of healing and restoration. The fractured family begins the slow process of mending itself piece by piece. The camera's gaze lingers on the gate outside their home, where a freshly painted sign now hangs proudly. Iris Haven. This is no accident. It's a tender nod to Ramona's favorite flower, the iris, which traditionally symbolizes faith, hope, and wisdom. The name itself evokes a sense of peace and sanctuary, a promise that this place, despite its dark past, can still offer protection. The scene then shifts indoors, moving quietly to Ramona's studio, where an unfinished painting sits on an easel. The brushstrokes depict a self-portrait, or so it seems at first glance. But look closer, and there's a haunting resemblance to the woman in the yard. Was this dark figure ever truly separate from Ramona, or merely a fragment of herself given form? At the bottom of the painting, the signature reads, Ramona, but every letter is mirrored, flipped as if written not by her hand, but by her own reflection in a distorted mirror. This chilling detail hints at duality, a fractured self, or perhaps the unsettling notion that Ramona's identity is still unraveling, still caught between light and shadow, between reality and illusion. And finally, the film closes where it began, with David's opening line echoing softly, I had the most amazing dream. And that's where the film ends. So guys, if you enjoyed today's movie or we have skipped any details, don't forget to leave your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear what you think, and stay tuned for our next upcoming movie. See you next time. Oh, and if you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button and tap the bell icon so you never miss an update.